Hello, I'm Doug Guthrie, Professor of Global Leadership and Executive Director of China Initiatives at the Thunderbird School of Global Management of Arizona State University. I'm also the co-founder and chairman of On Global Leadership. At On Global Leadership, we like to invite organizations and individuals to look at new ways of thinking about leadership, development, geopolitical economies, and smart capitalism. We focus a lot on China and economic development in China, but our work is always a mixture of bringing together the issues that are critical for the world and for U.S.-China relations and for China going global, and to really think deeply about how those things play out. Today, very briefly, I want to talk about tariffs. So this is a big topic. It's a big topic for the election right now. And it's been a topic for the trade war going on with China since 2016, and in particular, the massive tariffs that then President Trump unleashed on China to the tune of about 300 billion towards the end of his presidential run in about 2019. Those came into play. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit. I'm going to be brief. But recently, Donald Trump said, a tariff is a tax on a foreign country. A lot of people like to say it's a tax on us. No, it's a tax that doesn't affect our country. So he's been pretty vocal about this issue. And, you know, this is kind of key to what he's been thinking. Just yesterday, on September 5th, at the New York Economic Council, or the Economic Club of New York, Trump sort of doubled down on this issue. Ben Workskol of Yahoo Finance reported that he said Trump doubles down on his tariff ideas before New York business leaders at a talk of the Economic Club of New York. And, you know, basically he came out and said the same thing. He said, I'm talking about taxing foreign nations at levels that they've not been used to. But they'll get used to it very quickly, and it's not going to stop them from doing business with us. But they'll have a very substantial tax when they want to bring their products into our country. And we're going to be taking in trillions and trillions of dollars. And this is about America first. It's about make America first. It's about make America great again. Okay, so we all know this language. We've all heard him talk about it. But here's what I want to be very clear about. This is absolutely false. It's false. It's just plain wrong. And from a political perspective, my big concern here falls into one of two camps. So one, either Donald Trump and JD Vance are just so dumb that they don't understand what a tariff is or what it does. Or two, they cynically believe that American people don't understand the economics of these instruments and that they, the American people, can simply be lied to and that they'll believe whatever they say because their MAGA base is all in on them and so it's fine. And people won't really know the difference, okay? So either he's just an idiot, or he's just an abject manipulative liar. And my guess is that he and JD Vance are not idiots. I think that they're just liars. And so it's really, I think, a disturbing thing. It's a little bit puzzling to me as to why Trump would spout such nonsense in a room full of business leaders at the Economic Club of New York, because, you know, these are people who are educated on what tariffs are, and they are people who are dealing with the very issues. But okay, but let's just dive in for a minute on what this is. So what is a tariff? Okay, the basic finance definition is a tariff is a tax or a duty to be paid on a particular class of imports or exports. Okay, so you get things coming across the border, you want to put tariffs on China, anything made in China, and that means even anything assembled in China, right? So final assembly, if you think about products like iPhones or other complex problems, there's usually many, many, many different suppliers involved. They all come down to a final assembler like Foxconn or Pegatron sitting in China, and then those goods are exported to the United States. But even though Apple used to like to say designed by Apple in Cupertino, assembled in China means it's made in China. Okay, so anything made in China that crosses our borders gets hit with these tariffs, right? And so you can think about this is levying tariffs on certain countries. And so in theory, it could be seen as being a tax on the country, but not in the world of free market capitalism. The goods we receive that are coming across our borders are largely not from state-owned companies in a given country. And those goods that are from state-owned companies are a very small sliver. Mostly, we receive our goods from privately held or publicly traded companies that are producing goods and working with the suppliers to produce those goods in a given country. And then they sell those goods around the world. Again, Apple, Walmart, single largest exporter from China to the United States is Walmart, by the way, right? So a lot of the consumer goods that people who are shopping in Walmart are receiving are made in China, right? And so we live in a world in which we've opened the doors to allow corporations to find sophisticated, efficient, and cheap manufacturing supply chains around the world. And corporations are driven by profits and shareholder value. And so they are incentivized to go out and find these cheap, sophisticated, and efficient manufacturing supply chains. And for the last 4+ decades, since Deng Xiaoping visited Jimmy Carter in 1979 and opened China's doors, China has been the place that has been first for a decade or so was providing cheap labor, but then they spent the next 4 decades building the most sophisticated manufacturing supply chain in the world. And, there's no competing, right? We just don't have that supply chain that can just say, well, if it's going to be 25% more expensive to buy the good, like an iPhone that's built in the United States, that's incentivizing Apple to build it, or built in China, that's assembled in China, that's then incentivizing Apple to build it in the United States. The supply chain simply doesn't exist. And so you have no choice. So Trump says this is a tax on a foreign company, but when you place a tariff on the good, the entity exporting it into the United States pays the cost. Again, the examples, Apple and Walmart. And those costs are always passed down to consumers. You think Apple is just going to say to its shareholders, you know what, it's just more expensive and we're just going to pay the US government tax on this? No. And so, if you think about 2019, a Reuters report said that looked at it and thought about 92% of Apple's products were going to fall under the Trump tariffs. And that meant they were all going to rise in price by about 25%, right? That money goes directly to consumers. Those costs go directly to consumers. So it is not a tax on a foreign country. It is a tax on the consumers buying the goods, and in this case, US consumers, okay? And so, it's ridiculous to even talk about it. Now, one might say then, well, why is this a part of the conversation? And I think it's for two reasons. One is that, Donald Trump, JD Vance, they think they got a lot of credit for looking like they're tough. They're big on the economy and they're big on thinking about how to bring jobs back to America. And so, they're going to be tough on China, right? So China is the second largest economy in the world. And if you believe my team, we believe it's soon going to be the largest economy in the world, probably in about 5 to 7 years. And so Trump is being tough and saying, I'm going to tax China and we're going to hold them back and we're going to continue to build the American economy. Now, if the idea is because prices go up, companies will either be incentivized to bring their production processes back here, or they'll take them to other places around the world. This fundamentally misunderstands just how wedded to China companies like Apple are. The reason that Apple is the most profitable company in the world is because Apple is so deeply embedded in China's manufacturing supply chains that they are able to work with the 1,600 suppliers that they work with. Not one, not just Foxconn and Zhengzhou. They have about 1,600 suppliers that they work with. And they're able to negotiate their relationships with each of these suppliers. And usually they get their suppliers down to about zero margins, so that all of those margins go back into the Apple books. I won't go into more detail about this here, but trust me, I know I worked for Apple from 2014 to 2019, and I saw this very closely, how it works. So the idea that you could just come and rebuild Apple phones in Texas, it's wrong. It's false. So you're not creating jobs and you're not putting a tax on China. What you're doing is putting a tax on American consumers. Full stop, right? So either Donald Trump and JD Vance are too stupid to understand what you're actually doing. And I don't believe that that's stupid. I just think cynically, they think the American public is not sophisticated enough in terms of their understanding of how economics and tariffs work. And so if they say we're putting a tax on China and we're being tough on China, and they continue to say it over and over again, their base will believe them. And it's just wrong. And so I want to stop there, and we're happy to continue to talk about these issues. Look for our podcasts and look for our town hall meetings on US-China relations. And we will continue to put these ideas out there. Thank you very much, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye.